I don't have time for lost causes. Dr. Richard Brennan didn't even look up from his clipboard when he said it. He just stood there in his pristine white coat, stethoscope draped around his neck like some badge of superiority, and dismissed a dying 6-year-old boy with the same casual indifference someone might use to decline a sales pitch. Mia stood frozen in that emergency room hallway, her son Noah limp in her arms, his small body burning with fever, his breathing shallow and labored. She'd driven 40 minutes through a thunderstorm to get to Mercy General Hospital because it was supposed to be the best in the region. Because Dr. Brennan was supposed to be the best pediatric specialist in the state. Please, Mia heard herself say, her voice cracking. He can't breathe properly. He's been sick for 3 days and it's getting worse. I need you to examine him. Dr. Brennan finally looked up, and Mia saw it immediately in his eyes. That cold calculation. That judgment. He looked at her worn jacket, at her son's darker skin, at the desperation in her face, and he'd already made his decision. The clinic downtown handles walk-ins, he said, his tone suggesting this conversation was already over. They're better equipped for cases like this. Cases like this. The words hung in the air like poison. Mia was 32 years old, and she'd spent the last 6 years as a single mother working 2 jobs to provide for Noah. She was a paralegal during the day and cleaned office buildings at night. She wasn't rich, wasn't connected, didn't have the kind of insurance that opened doors in places like Mercy General. But she'd scraped together every dollar she had because Noah was her entire world, and she'd walk through fire if it meant saving him. Dr. Brennan, she tried again, shifting Noah's weight in her arms. His small hand was clutching her shirt, his eyes half closed. Please, I'm begging you. Just look at him. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. The doctor's expression didn't change. If anything, it hardened. Ma'am, I have patients who actually have appointments. Patients whose families understand how medical facilities operate. You can't just walk in here and demand immediate attention. But it wasn't about appointments. Mia could see it clearly now. She'd seen that same look before. In job interviews, in stores, in 1,000 small moments throughout her life. The look that said she didn't belong. That her son didn't matter. That people like them were somehow less deserving of care, of dignity, of basic human compassion. A nurse nearby, an older black woman named Patricia, stepped forward. Dr. Brennan, the child clearly needs. Thank you, Patricia. He cut her off, his voice sharp. I'll decide who needs what in my E. He turned back to Mia, and his next words were delivered with the kind of clinical detachment that made them even crueler. There are community health centers that specialize in lower-income families. I suggest you try one of those. Now, I really need you to clear this hallway. Mia felt something inside her shatter. Not just her heart, though that was breaking too. Something deeper. Her faith in the system, in fairness, in the idea that when it really mattered, people would do the right thing. She looked down at Noah. His eyes were closed now, his breathing even more labored than before. And she made a split-second decision. She would not leave this hospital without help. I'm not moving, she said quietly, but there was steel in her voice now. You can call security. You can threaten me. But I'm not leaving until someone examines my son. Dr. Brennan's jaw tightened. For a moment, Mia thought he might actually do it. Might actually call security to forcibly remove a woman holding a critically ill child. But then another doctor appeared at the end of the hallway, a younger physician named Dr. Sarah Chen. What's going on here? Dr. Chen asked, immediately moving toward Mia and Noah with concern in her eyes. Nothing that concerns you, Dr. Brennan said coldly. I'm handling it. But Dr. Chen was already examining Noah, gently touching his forehead, checking his pulse. Her expression shifted from concern to alarm in seconds. This child needs immediate attention. His fever is dangerously high and his breathing is compromised. I said I'm handling it, Dr. Brennan repeated, his voice rising. By turning them away? Dr. Chen's voice was sharp now. She looked at Mia. How long has he been like this? 3 days, Mia said, tears streaming down her face now. He had a cold, but it got worse. I tried everything. But tonight he started struggling to breathe and I got scared. Dr. Chen didn't hesitate. She took Noah from Mia's arms and started moving quickly toward an examination room. "Get me vitals now," she called out to the nurses. "And Page respiratory. This looks like pneumonia progressing to respiratory failure." Dr. Brennan stood there, his face red with anger and something else. Embarrassment, maybe. Or fear of being shown up by a younger colleague. "Dr. Chen, you're overstepping. Save it." Dr. Chen cut him off. "You want to file a complaint after we save this child's life? Go ahead." The next few hours were a blur. Noah was admitted immediately. He had severe bacterial pneumonia that had progressed significantly. Dr. Chen explained to Mia that another few hours without treatment could have been catastrophic. Could have been. But they'd caught it. They'd saved him. Mia sat by Noah's hospital bed that entire night, holding his small hand, watching his chest rise and fall with the help of oxygen, thanking God and Dr. Chen and every force in the universe that had put that compassionate doctor in the hallway at exactly the right moment. But she couldn't forget Dr. Brennan's face. Couldn't forget his words. Couldn't forget how close she'd come to losing everything because one man had looked at her son and decided he wasn't worth saving. 3 days later, Noah was released from the hospital. Dr. Chen had personally overseen his treatment, had checked on him multiple times, had even given Mia her personal cell number in case of emergency. "You're a good mother," Dr. Chen had told her. "Don't let anyone make you question that." Mia went home with Noah, grateful beyond words that her son was alive, that he was giggling again, that he was asking for his favorite cereal. Life went back to normal, or as normal as it could be after such a traumatic experience. But late at night, when Noah was sleeping peacefully in his bed and Mia sat alone with her thoughts, she couldn't shake the rage, the humiliation, the injustice of it all. Dr. Brennan had gone back to his prestigious practice, had probably forgotten about them entirely, while Mia had nightmares about what could have happened if Dr. Chen hadn't appeared. What if there had been no Dr. Chen? What if Noah had died because one arrogant man decided they weren't worth his time? The thought made her physically ill. Mia started researching Dr. Richard Brennan. She wasn't sure why at first. Maybe just to understand who he was, what made him think he had the right to play God with children's lives. What she found made her blood boil even more. Dr. Brennan wasn't just successful, he was celebrated. Awards, commendations, glowing reviews from wealthy families. He served on the hospital board. He'd been featured in medical journals. He was untouchable, or so everyone thought. But Mia was a paralegal. She knew how systems worked. She knew where to look for cracks. And she had something Dr. Brennan would never understand. She had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. If this story is making you feel something, that raw anger that comes from injustice, make sure you're subscribed because what Mia discovered next would change everything. 2 months after that night in the emergency room, Mia received a bill in the mail. $47,000 for Noah's 3-day hospital stay. Her insurance, the bare minimum catastrophic coverage she could afford, covered almost nothing. The bill itemized everything: the oxygen, the antibiotics, the monitoring equipment, Dr. Chen's consultation fees. And there, buried in the middle of page 3, was a charge that made Mia's hands shake. Emergency room consultation, Dr. Richard Brennan, $850. He charged her. The man who refused to touch her son, who called him a lost cause, who tried to turn them away, had somehow billed for a consultation he never provided. Mia stared at that line item for a full minute, feeling rage build in her chest like a physical pressure. She called the hospital's billing department. The woman on the phone was apologetic but firm. Dr. Brennan documented that he provided triage assessment services. If you want to dispute it, you'll need to file a formal complaint with our patient advocacy office. Mia filed the complaint. She wrote a 3-page letter detailing exactly what happened that night, including Dr. Brennan's refusal to examine Noah and his discriminatory language. She cited the timestamps, mentioned Nurse Patricia as a witness, praised Dr. Chen for actually saving her son's life. 3 weeks later, she received a form letter. After careful review, we find no evidence of inappropriate conduct. Dr. Brennan's assessment was consistent with standard emergency room procedures. Case closed. That was it. No investigation, no interview, no consequences. The system had protected its own, and Mia was left holding a $47,000 bill she had no way to pay. She called a lawyer, a friend of a friend who did medical malpractice cases. He listened to her story, asked a few questions, then delivered the verdict she'd been dreading. Without physical harm, it's almost impossible to prove discrimination or malpractice. Yes, he was inappropriate. Yes, he should have examined your son. But technically, Dr. Chen did examine him, and Noah recovered fully. No jury is going to award damages when the child survived. So he just gets away with it? Mia asked, her voice hollow. Unfortunately, yes. Unless you can prove a pattern of behavior. But doctors like Brennan, they're careful. They know how to document things to cover themselves. Mia hung up feeling defeated. She set up a payment plan for the medical bills that would take her 7 years to pay off. She went back to her 2 jobs, back to taking care of Noah, back to pretending everything was fine. But everything wasn't fine. Noah had nightmares now. He'd wake up screaming, saying he couldn't breathe, reliving that night when Mia had held him in that cold hospital hallway, begging for help that wouldn't come. She'd hold him until he fell back asleep, whispering that he was safe, that she'd never let anything happen to him again, except she almost had. She'd almost lost him because she'd believed the system would work. Because she'd trusted that doctors took an oath to help people regardless of who they were or what they looked like. 3 months after the incident, Mia was at the courthouse filing routine paperwork for her law firm when she noticed a woman sitting on a bench in the hallway, crying. Professional instinct made Mia approach her. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. "Is there something I can help with?" The woman looked up. She was young, maybe mid-20s Latina, and her eyes were red from crying. "I'm waiting for family court. My daughter, she got sick last month, really sick. I took her to Mercy General and they made me wait for 6 hours." By the time someone saw her, it was too late. Mia felt ice run through her veins. "What do you mean too late?" "She died." The woman's voice broke. "My baby died from meningitis because they made us wait in the EO for 6 hours. They kept saying other patients were more critical. They kept pushing us back in the line. And now she's gone." "I'm so sorry," Mia whispered, sitting down beside her. After a moment, she asked, "Who was the attending physician that night?" The woman pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, a hospital document. She handed it to Mia with shaking hands. Dr. Richard Brennan's signature was at the bottom. Mia's world tilted. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a pattern. "Have you filed a complaint?" she asked urgently. "They said there's nothing to investigate, that the ER was at capacity. That decisions had to be made about resource allocation." The woman wiped her eyes. "My lawyer says I don't have a case because I don't have money for expert witnesses. Says going up against a doctor like Brennan would cost hundreds of thousands in legal fees." They sat there together, 2 mothers whose children had been deemed expendable by the same man. Eventually, the woman went into her court hearing, and Mia went back to work. But something had shifted. This wasn't just about what happened to Noah anymore. This was bigger. Mia started digging. Not as an angry mother, but as a paralegal with access to public records and legal databases. She pulled every malpractice claim filed against Mercy General for the past 5 years. She cross-referenced them with e-admission logs that were public record. She built a spreadsheet tracking wait times, patient outcomes, and attending physicians. And a pattern emerged. A crystal-clear, undeniable pattern. Under Dr. Brennan's supervision, patients of color waited an average of 3 hours longer than white patients for the same level of severity. Discharge rates were significantly higher for Black and Hispanic patients, who were sent home with inadequate treatment more than twice as often as white patients with identical symptoms. But it was all documented carefully. Brennan's notes always justified his decisions with medical jargon. Patient presented as stable. No acute distress observed. Recommended outpatient follow-up. He'd covered himself perfectly on paper. Except Mia found something else. Something Brennan hadn't covered nearly as well. His financial disclosures, which were public record because he sat on the hospital board, showed significant investments in a private concierge medical practice across town. A practice that exclusively served wealthy clients and was in direct competition with Mercy General's emergency services. Brennan was deliberately driving away certain patients from Mercy General's ER. Patients who couldn't afford his private practice anyway. Patients he considered undesirable. He was manipulating wait times and care quality to protect his business interests while maintaining his prestigious position at a public hospital. It was calculated, it was methodical, and it was monstrous. Mia kept digging. She found 3 more families whose children had been mistreated under Brennan's watch. One family had filed a complaint that went nowhere. The other 2 had been too intimidated by the hospital's lawyers to pursue anything. She contacted them all, carefully explaining who she was and what she'd found. "Would you be willing to talk about your experiences?" she asked each of them. "Not for a lawsuit, just ... to tell your stories." They all said yes. They'd been waiting for someone to listen. 6 months after that night, when Dr. Brennan called her son a lost cause, Mia sat in her small apartment with a folder full of evidence. Medical records, financial documents, signed statements from 5 families, and a timeline that painted a devastating picture of systematic discrimination. She had everything she needed. Almost. What she didn't have was a platform. These families had tried complaining through official channels and been shut down. The hospital protected Brennan. The medical board protected Brennan. The legal system protected Brennan. Mia needed to go around them. She needed to make this public in a way that couldn't be ignored or buried. She'd been researching Dr. Brennan's schedule, his public appearances, his professional commitments. And she'd found something perfect. In 2 months, Mercy General Hospital was hosting its annual fundraising gala. A black tie event attended by donors, board members, local politicians, and media. Dr. Brennan was receiving an award that night, Humanitarian Physician of the Year. They were going to celebrate him, honor him, hold him up as an example of medical excellence. Mia looked at the invitation posted on the hospital's website and smiled for the first time in months. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd finally figured out exactly how to burn down an empire. She opened her laptop and started typing. But what Mia was planning wasn't just about exposing one doctor's racism. What she'd discovered went deeper than anyone imagined. And the evidence she'd compiled would do more than destroy a career. It would shake the entire hospital system to its foundation. Mia knew she couldn't do this alone. Exposing someone like Dr. Brennan required more than just evidence. It required credibility. She needed allies who couldn't be dismissed or intimidated. Her first call was to Dr. Sarah Chun. They met at a coffee shop 20 minutes from the hospital. Dr. Chun arrived looking cautious, concerned. "Mia, what's this about? Is Noah okay?" "Noah's fine, thanks to you." Mia slid the folder across the table. "But other children aren't. I need you to look at something." Dr. Chen opened the folder, and Mia watched her face change as she read through the documents. The wait time analyses, the discharge patterns, the family statements. When she reached the financial disclosures showing Brennan's investments, her jaw tightened. "I suspected something was off with him," Dr. Chen said quietly, still reading. "The way he triages patients, the families he prioritizes. But this is systematic. It's been happening for years," Mia said. "And the hospital keeps protecting him because he brings in donations and prestige. But I found something else." She showed Dr. Chun another document. It was a report from the hospital's Internal Quality Review Committee from 2 years ago. Someone had flagged Brennan's disproportionate discharge rates for minority patients. The committee had noted it, discussed it, and then buried it. The chairman who'd wanted further investigation had mysteriously resigned 3 months later. "Where did you get this?" Dr. Chun asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have friends in records departments. People who've seen things they couldn't talk about officially." Mia leaned forward. "Dr. Chun, I'm going to expose him at the fundraising gala. In front of everyone. But I need someone with medical credentials to verify what I found. Someone who can explain to non-medical people why this data proves discrimination." Dr. Chen was silent for a long moment. "If I do this, I'll lose my job. Brennan sits on the board. His friends run this hospital. I know. And I wouldn't ask if I had any other choice. What about you? Dr. Chen asked. What do you stand to lose? Mia smiled sadly. I've already lost everything that matters. Now I'm just settling accounts. Dr. Chen closed the folder and looked Mia straight in the eyes. My daughter is Noah's age. Every time I see her, I think about what almost happened to him because of that man's bigotry. She took a deep breath. I'm in. Tell me what you need. The second ally came unexpectedly. Mia had sent her evidence to 3 investigative journalists, hoping someone would be interested. 2 never responded. The third, a reporter named Marcus Webb who'd won awards for exposing healthcare fraud, called her within 24 hours. Miss Patterson, I'd been trying to nail Brennan for 3 years, he said without preamble. I knew something was wrong, but I could never prove it. What you've compiled here. This is exactly what I needed. They met at his office. Marcus was in his 50s, black, with the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades fighting battles that most people ignored. His office walls were covered with framed articles about corruption, medical malpractice, and institutional racism. I lost my nephew to medical negligence, he told Mia. Different hospital, different doctor, but the same pattern. Kid came in with chest pain. They made him wait 8 hours, treated him like he was drug-seeking. By the time they realized it was a heart condition, it was too late. He was 19. I'm sorry, Mia said. Don't be sorry. Help me make sure it doesn't keep happening. Marcus pulled out his own files on Brennan. I've got testimonies from 6 former Mercy General nurses who witnessed discriminatory practices. They were too scared to go on record before. But if you're really doing this at the gala, if you're really going public, I can get them to talk. The plan took shape over the next 6 weeks. Dr. Chen would prepare a medical analysis of Brennan's patient outcomes, comparing his statistics to other doctors at the same hospital. Marcus would write the article, ready to publish the moment Mia made her move. And Mia would compile everything into a presentation that even people without medical training could understand. But they needed one more thing: access to the gala. The event was invitation only, $500 per ticket. Mia didn't have $500. She barely had $50 after paying her bills and Noah's medical debt installments. That's when Nurse Patricia, the woman who tried to help Noah that night, reached out. Mia had interviewed her for the investigation, and Patricia had been quietly furious about what she'd witnessed over the years. I have 2 tickets to the gala, Patricia said when they met. The hospital gives them to senior staff. I was planning to sell them because I can't stand these fancy parties. But if you're going to expose that man, you can have them. Free. Mia hugged her, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank me by making him pay for what he's done. Meanwhile, Dr. Brennan had no idea what was coming. Mia watched him from a distance sometimes. Saw him arriving at the hospital in his luxury car. Saw him in the local newspaper being praised for his charitable work. He'd started a scholarship fund for underprivileged medical students, which the media loved. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. He was preparing for his big night, his moment of recognition. He'd given interviews about the importance of compassionate care, about his dedication to serving all patients equally. The lies came so easily to him, so naturally, that Mia wondered if he even remembered the truth anymore. One afternoon, exactly 3 weeks before the gala, Mia was at the hospital pharmacy picking up Noah's asthma medication when she saw Brennan in the lobby. He was talking to a young couple, the man in a business suit, the woman in designer clothes. They were white, obviously wealthy, and Brennan was all charm and attention. Don't worry, she heard him say. Your daughter will get the absolute best care. I'll personally oversee her treatment. The couple thanked him profusely, shaking his hand like he was their savior. And maybe for them, he was. That was the most sickening part. Brennan wasn't evil to everyone. He was perfectly capable of compassion and excellent care. When the patient looked right, had the right insurance, came from the right neighborhood. He was a bigot wearing a white coat, and he'd learned to hide it perfectly. Mia walked past him to leave, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. He didn't recognize her. Why would he? She was nobody to him. Just another face in a crowd of people who didn't matter. But in 2 weeks and 4 days, he'd remember her. In 2 weeks and 4 days, she'd make sure her face was the last thing he saw before his carefully constructed world collapsed. Mia went home and worked on her presentation late into the night while Noah slept. She rehearsed every word, every revelation, every piece of evidence. She needed 15 minutes. That's all. 15 minutes to undo 30 years of lies. Dr. Chen called the evening before the gala. I'm scared, she admitted. I keep thinking about what happens after. How I'll pay my bills. Whether I'll ever work in medicine again. You'll work again, Mia said with certainty she didn't quite feel. Because there are hospitals that need doctors like you. Doctors who actually remember why they took the Hippocratic Oath. And you? What happens to you after this? Mia looked at Noah's room, at the medical bills stacked on her kitchen table, at the life she'd built from nothing and refused to let anyone take from her. I survive. Same as always. The night before the gala, Mia couldn't sleep. She kept replaying that moment in the emergency room hallway. Brennan's cold eyes, his dismissive tone, the way he'd looked at Noah like he was already dead. Like he wasn't worth the effort. Tomorrow night, everyone would see what she'd seen. Tomorrow night, the mask would come off. Mia picked up her phone and scrolled through the messages from the other families, the ones whose children had suffered under Brennan's care. They were all counting on her. She wouldn't let them down. She pulled up the gala program on her laptop one more time. Dr. Brennan was scheduled to receive his award at 8:30 p.m., right after dinner. The hospital's CEO would present it. There would be speeches, applause, a standing ovation probably. And then, during the open microphone portion where donors could share testimonials, Mia would stand up. The organizers thought she was going to talk about the wonderful care her son received. They'd approved her speaking request without a second thought. They had no idea what was about to hit them. And neither did Dr. Brennan, who was probably sleeping peacefully, dreaming of accolades and recognition, completely unaware that the woman whose child he'd called a lost cause had spent 8 months building a case that would destroy everything he'd ever worked for. The ballroom of the Chicago Grand Hotel sparkled with crystal, chandeliers, and the self-congratulatory laughter of people who believed they were doing good in the world. 500 guests in tuxedos and evening gowns, champagne flowing, a string quartet playing softly in the corner. The annual Mercy General fundraising gala was everything Mia had expected. Opulent, exclusive, and completely disconnected from the reality of the patients who actually needed that hospital. Mia sat at a table near the back, wearing a simple black dress she'd bought at a thrift store. Next to her sat Dr. Chen, looking elegant but nervous, and Marcus Webb, his phone ready to publish the article that would go live the moment Mia finished speaking. At the front of the room, at the head table reserved for honored guests, Dr. Richard Brennan held court. He looked every bit the celebrated physician in his custom tuxedo, laughing with board members and donors, basking in the attention. His wife sat beside him, a blonde woman dripping in diamonds who smiled at all the right moments. Ladies and gentlemen, the hospital CEO, Thomas Hartwell, stepped up to the microphone. It's my tremendous honor to present our Humanitarian Physician of the Year award. This recognition goes to a doctor who exemplifies everything we stand for at Mercy General: excellence, compassion, and unwavering dedication to patient care. Mia's stomach churned. She watched the audience nod approvingly, watched them buy into the lie. Dr. Richard Brennan has served our emergency department for 15 years, Hartwell continued. In that time, he's treated thousands of patients, mentored dozens of young physicians, and established himself as one of the most respected pediatric specialists in our region. His commitment to underserved communities through his scholarship program demonstrates his belief that quality health care should be accessible to everyone. The irony was suffocating. Mia's hands gripped the edge of the table. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Richard Brennan to accept this well-deserved recognition. The room erupted in applause. Brennan stood, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease, and walked to the podium. He shook Hartwell's hand, accepted the Crystal Award, and stepped up to the microphone wearing a humble smile that Mia wanted to rip off his face. "Thank you, Thomas, and thank you all for this incredible honor," Brennan began, his voice smooth and warm. "I became a doctor because I believe every life has value. Every patient who walks through those emergency room doors deserves our very best, regardless of their background or circumstances." Mia felt Dr. Chen's hand squeeze hers under the table. "Steady," Chen whispered. "In medicine, we often face difficult decisions," Brennan continued. "Resource allocation, triage protocols, determining who needs immediate intervention. But I've always been guided by one principle: do no harm. Treat every patient as if they were your own family member." The audience was eating it up. Heads nodding, people wiping away tears. They believed him. They actually believed him. "I'm particularly proud of the scholarship program we've established for students from disadvantaged backgrounds," Brennan said, his voice taking on that tone of noble charity that made Mia's blood boil. "Because diversity in medicine matters. We need doctors who understand and reflect the communities they serve." He paused for effect, letting the audience absorb his supposed commitment to equality. "So, thank you again for this recognition. But the real heroes are the nurses, the staff, everyone at Mercy General who shows up every day to make a difference. Together, we're saving lives." More applause. A standing ovation. People were actually standing for this man. Mia watched Brennan soak it in, watched him believe his own mythology. Then Hartwell returned to the microphone. "We have a brief open forum now where some of our grateful patients and families would like to share testimonials about the exceptional care they received at Mercy General." This was it. Mia stood up. "I'd like to speak," she said, her voice carrying across the room. Hartwell smiled warmly. "Of course. Please, come up to the microphone." Mia walked down the center aisle. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her, could hear the whispers wondering who she was. As she passed Brennan's table, their eyes met. He still didn't recognize her. She was just another grateful patient about to praise the hospital. She reached the podium and adjusted the microphone. Her heart was racing, but her hands were steady. Behind her, Marcus had his phone ready. Dr. Chen was standing now, prepared to speak when needed. "My name is Mia Patterson," she began, her voice clear and strong. 8 months ago, I brought my 6-year-old son, Noah, to Mercy General's emergency room. He had a fever of 104, pneumonia, and was going into respiratory failure. The room was silent now, listening. This sounded like it would be a heartwarming recovery story. Dr. Richard Brennan was the attending physician that night. Mia turned slightly, looking directly at Brennan. She saw the first flicker of recognition in his eyes. He took one look at my son, one look at me, and said, "I don't have time for lost causes." The silence in the room shifted, became uncomfortable, confused. He refused to examine my son, told me to try a clinic downtown, said they were better equipped for cases like this. My son was dying, and Dr. Brennan dismissed him without even checking his vitals. Brennan shot to his feet. "This is completely inappropriate. Sit down," Hartwell hissed at him, but the CEO's face had gone pale. Mia continued, her voice rising. "My son survived because another doctor, Dr. Sarah Chen, happened to be in the hallway and actually did her job. But I started wondering, how many children didn't survive? How many families were turned away by Dr. Brennan's triage assessment?" She pulled out a remote control and clicked it. Behind her, a screen lit up with a PowerPoint presentation. The first slide showed a simple chart, average E-wait times at Mercy General, broken down by race. "This is public data from your own hospital," Mia said. "Under Dr. Brennan's supervision, Black patients wait an average of 3.2 hours longer than white patients with identical symptoms. Hispanic patients wait 2.8 hours longer." "These aren't opinions. These are facts." The room erupted in whispers. Board members were looking at each other in panic. Brennan's face had gone from red to white. "That's taken out of context," Brennan shouted. Wait times depend on multiple factors." "Next slide," Mia said calmly. The screen changed to show discharge rates. Patients of color are discharged from Dr. Brennan's EA at twice the rate of white patients. even when presenting with more severe symptoms. This is called undertreatment. It's medical discrimination. Dr. Chen stood up from her seat. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, attending physician at Mercy General. I've reviewed Ms. Patterson's data with 3 independent medical statisticians. Her analysis is accurate. Dr. Brennan's patient outcomes show clear patterns of racial bias. This is insane, Brennan said, but his voice had lost its confidence. He was looking around for support, for allies. No one was meeting his eyes. Mia clicked again. The next slide showed financial records. Dr. Brennan also has significant investments in a private concierge practice that competes with Mercy General's emergency services. He's been driving away patients he considers unprofitable while maintaining his prestigious position here. That's a lie, Brennan roared. Security, remove this woman. But Hartwell held up a hand to stop security. He was staring at the screen, his face ashen. These were documents he should have seen, investigations that should have happened. I have statements from 5 families whose children died or nearly died under Dr. Brennan's care, Mia said, her voice breaking now. 5 families who were told their cases weren't priority. Who were made to wait while their children suffered. Who watched their babies die because one man decided they weren't worth saving. The slide changed to show photos. 5 beautiful children. 5 names. 5 stories. The room was completely silent now, except for the sound of people crying. Carmen Rodriguez, age 4. Died of meningitis after waiting 6 hours in the A. Isaiah Thompson, age 7. Permanent brain damage from untreated seizures. Aaliyah Jenkins, age 5. Died from complications of asthma after being discharged with Tylenol. Mia's voice was steady, but tears were streaming down her face. And my son, Noah Patterson, age 6. Who survived only because one good doctor happened to walk by at the right moment. She turned to face Brennan directly. You called my son a lost cause. But the only thing lost here is your humanity. Marcus stood up from his seat. I'm Marcus Webb, investigative reporter for the Chicago Tribune. This story, with all of Ms. Patterson's evidence and supporting documentation, goes live on our website in 30 seconds. I've also forwarded everything to the State Medical Board, the Department of Justice, and the FBI. Brennan's wife grabbed his arm, her face a mask of horror. Board members were standing, pulling out phones, talking in frantic whispers. The gala had dissolved into chaos. If stories of justice like this matter to you, if you believe in holding the powerful accountable, stay with this channel because what happened next proved that sometimes the truth really does win. Hartwell grabbed the microphone. This gala is over. Everyone please exit in an orderly fashion. Dr. Brennan, you need to come with me immediately. But Brennan wasn't moving. He was staring at Mia with an expression that cycled through rage, fear, and finally, the crushing realization that his entire life was over. 30 years of building his reputation, his practice, his image as a humanitarian, all of it destroyed in 15 minutes. You have no idea what you've done, he said to Mia, his voice shaking. I know exactly what I've done, she replied. I did what you should have done 8 months ago. I saved my son, and now I'm making sure you can never hurt another child again. Security was escorting Brennan out now, his wife crying beside him. Cameras flashing as local news stations picked up on the chaos. Mia stood at that podium and watched him go, watched his empire crumble, watched justice finally being served. Dr. Chen came up beside her and put an arm around her shoulders. You did it, she whispered. But Mia knew it wasn't over yet. What came next would determine whether this was just one man falling or the beginning of real change. The video of Mia's speech went viral within hours. By morning it had 20 million views. By the end of the week, it was international news. Mother exposes racist doctor at his own award ceremony, was the headline everywhere. Marcus Webb's article in the Chicago Tribune was devastating and meticulously documented. It included not just Mia's evidence, but testimonies from 12 former Mercy General nurses who'd witnessed Brennan's discriminatory practices for years. 3 had tried reporting him and then pressured into silence. 2 had quit rather than continue working under him. The State Medical Board launched an immediate investigation. Within 72 hours, Dr. Brennan's medical license was suspended pending review. Within 2 weeks, it was permanently revoked. The FBI opened a civil rights investigation. What they found was even worse than Mia had documented. Brennan had been systematically undertreating minority patients for nearly a decade, and the hospital administration had been aware of complaints but chose to protect their star physician rather than their vulnerable patients. Internal emails showed board members discussing how to manage discrimination complaints without creating liability. Mercy General's CEO, Thomas Hartwell, resigned under pressure. 3 board members followed. The hospital faced multiple wrongful death lawsuits, and their liability insurance premiums tripled overnight. The Department of Justice filed a federal lawsuit alleging systematic civil rights violations. Dr. Brennan tried fighting back initially. He hired expensive lawyers, gave a tearful interview claiming he was being unfairly targeted, insisted the data was misinterpreted. But every day brought new revelations. More families came forward. More former colleagues spoke out. A medical resident revealed that Brennan had once told him, "You have to learn which patients are worth your time and which ones are just draining resources." The recording of that conversation, captured years ago and buried out of fear, was now Exhibit A in the DOJ's case. Brennan's private practice collapsed. His partners forced him out. His investments were liquidated to pay legal fees. His wife filed for divorce, citing the emotional trauma of discovering who she'd been married to. Within 6 months, the man who'd been celebrated as Humanitarian Physician of the Year was unemployed, disgraced, and facing potential criminal charges. He'd lost everything. His career, his reputation, his marriage, his wealth, all of it gone. And unlike his victims, unlike the families he destroyed, he had no one to blame but himself. Meanwhile, Mia's life transformed in ways she'd never imagined. The fundraising gala might have ended in chaos, but what followed was an outpouring of support. A legal advocacy group offered to represent all 5 families in their lawsuits pro bono. A GoFundMe campaign raised $200,000 to help Mia pay off Noah's medical bills. She paid them completely, then donated the rest to other families struggling with medical debt. Dr. Sarah Chun was initially fired from Mercy General for her role in the exposure, but 3 hospitals immediately offered her positions. She chose County General, where she became the head of their emergency department and implemented strict protocols to prevent discrimination in patient care. "I should have spoken up years ago," Dr. Chen told Mia over coffee 6 months after the gala. "I saw what he was doing. I knew it was wrong. But I was scared for my career, my security. You taught me that some things are worth losing everything for." Mia started a nonprofit organization called Noah's Voice, dedicated to fighting discrimination in emergency medicine. She testified before congressional committees about racial disparities in healthcare. She trained hospital staff on recognizing and preventing bias. She became a national advocate for patient rights, traveling the country telling her story and empowering other families to speak up. "Your pain doesn't have to be pointless," she told audiences. "It can be the catalyst for change. It can save the next person, the next child, the next family." Marcus Webb won a Pulitzer Prize for his reporting on the Mercy General scandal. He credited Mia in his acceptance speech, calling her the kind of hero journalism needs, someone willing to stand up when institutions fail. Noah, now 7 years old, was thriving. He'd started 2nd grade, joined the school soccer team, and talked constantly about wanting to be a doctor when he grew up. "But a good one," he'd tell Mia. "Like Dr. Chen, someone who helps everybody." 1 year after the gala, Mia received an invitation to speak at a medical school graduation. She stood before 200 young doctors, many of them first-generation students, many from the exact communities that Brennan had discriminated against, and she told them Noah's story. "You're entering a profession that wields tremendous power," she said. "The power to save lives, yes, but also the power to decide whose life is worth saving. Please, I'm begging you, never let bias make that decision. Never let prejudice make you forget why you chose this path." The students gave her a standing ovation. Afterward, dozens approached her, some crying, all thanking her for the reminder of what they'd promised to be. That same week, Mia learned that Dr. Richard Brennan had filed for bankruptcy. His legal fees had consumed everything. He was working at a telehealth call center now, making $15 an hour, answering basic medical questions from a script. No prestige, no autonomy, no power. Mia felt no joy in his suffering. What she felt was something deeper. Justice. Not the vengeful kind, but the restorative kind. Brennan couldn't hurt anyone else. The system that protected him had been exposed and reformed. And the families he'd harmed finally had validation that what happened to them was real, was wrong, and wasn't their fault. 2 years after that night in the emergency room, Mia sat in her new office at Noah's Voice headquarters. The organization had grown beyond anything she'd imagined. They'd helped 40 families file discrimination complaints. They'd trained staff at 60 hospitals. They'd lobbied for state legislation requiring bias training for all emergency room personnel. Her phone rang. It was a mother from Baltimore whose daughter had been mistreated in an I saw your video, the woman said, crying. And I realized I don't have to accept this. I can fight back. Yes, you can, Mia told her. And you're not alone. We'll help you. This was her life now. This was her purpose. Not the life she'd planned, not the quiet existence she'd once wanted, but something better. Something that mattered. Noah ran into her office after school, his backpack bouncing. Mom, guess what? I got an A on my science project. Mia pulled him into a hug, breathing in the scent of his hair, feeling his heartbeat against her chest. This child who'd almost been taken from her. This beautiful, brilliant boy who'd been called a lost cause by a man too blinded by prejudice to see his worth. I'm so proud of you, she whispered. That night, as Noah slept peacefully in his bed, Mia opened her laptop and saw a news alert. Dr. Brennan had been arrested. The DOJ's investigation had uncovered evidence of insurance fraud. He'd been billing for consultations. He never performed, just like he'd done with Noah. Combined with the civil rights violations, he was facing up to 15 years in prison. Mia closed the laptop. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt tired and sad and grateful that it was finally, truly over. She walked to Noah's room and stood in the doorway, watching him sleep. In 8 months, she'd gone from a terrified mother begging for help to someone who'd changed an entire system. She'd been broken, dismissed, told she had no power. But she'd proven them all wrong. The best revenge, Mia had learned, wasn't destroying your enemy. It was taking the pain they caused and transforming it into something meaningful. It was refusing to let injustice have the final word. It was standing up when everyone expected you to stay down and proving that one voice, one story, one determined person could actually change the world. Dr. Richard Brennan had tried to make Mia and Noah disappear. Instead, he'd created someone who would make sure crimes could never be forgotten, and more importantly, could never be repeated. Some people called Mia a hero. She didn't feel like one. She was just a mother who'd fought for her child and discovered that fighting for one child meant fighting for all of them. And that, she realized, was exactly what the world needed more of. Not heroes. Just regular people who refused to accept injustice, who stood up, who spoke out, who transformed their pain into purpose and their anger into action. Mia Patterson had saved her son that night in the emergency room by refusing to leave. But in the 2 years since, she'd saved countless others by refusing to stay silent. And she was just getting started. If this story moved you, if you believe that justice matters and that every child's life has value, please share it. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and whether you've ever had to fight a system that didn't want to listen. Because your stories matter too. Your voice matters. And together, we can make sure that what happened to Noah never happens to another child again. Subscribe to hear more stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Because sometimes the most powerful weapon against injustice is simply refusing to be silent.